everybody, welcome to Learn with Oneupweb. My name's Christina Marbury and I'm a senior project manager here working on the content and SEO team. So I spend my days thinking about how to get websites ranking in search engines. Today we're going to cover an intro to SEO. So we're going to talk about how search engines work and some basic things that you need to think about when you're trying to optimize a site so it will rank in the search engines. So first of all, the basics. How does it work? How do search engines work? I think at one point in time, I probably thought it was all about magic, but there is a lot to how search engines are looking through all the content out there on the internet and trying to figure out exactly what should show up when a user puts any search into the search bar. You probably have heard the word algorithms floating around there. Algorithms are really the basis of how that functions. The search algorithm is the pieces of code that are taking all of the information out there on the internet and making sense of it so search engines can pull all of that information when they need it. It's what they rely on every single time a search is performed. And there's really three basic things that go into algorithms determining what should show up at any given time on the SERP, or the search engine's result page, if you're not familiar with that term. And the first one of those things is search intent. Search engines are always improving the way that they function, and they're getting really good at understanding a user's intent. So what that is what you intend to find when you search for something. And depending on what a user types in, those search engines can kind of figure out whether they're trying to find information, whether they're trying to navigate somewhere, or if they're looking maybe to have a transaction during that session. So for example, if somebody's searching about coffee, if they just search for coffee, it's likely they really just want some basic background information about maybe where it comes from or why people love coffee so much. They could be looking for any number of things because that's a really broad, short tail keyword. If they start to get a little bit more specific, we might have a better idea about their intent. So say somebody is searching for how to brew the best coffee. We know that they're looking for maybe a blog post or some sort of article with instructions for how they can actually brew that coffee. If somebody's searching for a coffee shop, then we know that they're likely looking to go out and grab a cup of coffee somewhere. So they're probably going to get a local pack in the search results, lists of businesses that are nearby where they're located at that moment. And then, if somebody's searching for coffee beans, it's much more likely they're looking to have a transactional interaction. So they might be looking for someone who sells coffee beans online that they could order and have shipped right to their door. The two other big things, aside from search intent, are quality and relevance. You will hear this come up all the time when it comes to how search engines are functioning. The first piece, quality, is, as you would imagine, about the quality of your website. So how authoritative are you? Are you a business or an organization that is really kind of steeped in the industry somebody's searching about and most likely to have some really great information on the topic that the user is searching about? And then relevance is really more so about the specific copy and content on the page that you're hoping to rank. So that's going to be, are you answering the searcher's intent? If somebody's searching for how to brew the best cup of coffee, do you have the absolute best, most in-depth instructions on how to actually brew that coffee? Man, I really wish I had a cup of coffee right now. All right, so talking about quality, let's dig into that topic a little bit more. Search engines are really getting good at understanding content on the page. So it's not, a long time ago, it was all about how many keywords did you fit in the page? Do you have all of those exact phrases outlined in the copy that you've written? Whereas now they're getting much better at understanding how all of the information on the page fits together. So it's not just about those keywords being there. It's about having content that's written really well, that a user is going to be drawn into and want to read because it's good content. If you open a website and it's just poorly written and you're not very excited about it, you're pretty likely to go back to that search engine and find something else to look at, right? The next one is your brand an authority? So as I mentioned before, does your brand have that place within the industry where they're looked to as a trusted source of information? That's going to make it much easier for you to rank for terms when you kind of already have that place of identity within the industry. A way that you can build authority if you maybe aren't quite there yet, you're a new brand, you're maybe a local business that needs a little work before you're really established within the industry. The most important piece here is going to be backlinks. So those are links from other websites that are directed to your site or to a specific piece of content. That will be a whole nother training on how to acquire backlinks, how to write great content to get backlinks. But really, it's just important to know that search engines are looking at how many people link to your content. And the more trustworthy websites out there that are linking to your content, the better it's going to perform in the search results. And then the last piece I want to call out here is user experience. And this obviously is a extremely broad topic, but search engines are getting really good at identifying how fluid the experience is for a user on your website. So if your website loads really poorly on a mobile device, if it's really hard to navigate, then it's less likely that the search engines are actually going to show your site in the search results because they want to provide that great experience for users. Google and the other search engines, they're really there for the users. They're not there for the websites whose pages are showing up in the search results. They're there to provide that great experience for users. So you want to make sure that you're doing the same thing on your website as well. All right. Next, we're going to talk about relevance. So covered it a little bit. It's really about how well you're matching that search intent, how well you're filling the needs of that searcher. So Google and the other search engines are tracking what users do on a regular basis. We all know that. And if a user comes to your site, skims the content, it's not relevant to their search, so they go back to the search engine to find something else, then that's sending the message that you're not providing the information most searchers might be looking for when they conduct that search. We want to make sure that the content we're writing on any given page is really relevant to the keywords that we're trying to target. We'll talk about keyword research in another training. We'll go into depth about how you actually choose those keywords that you want to rank for, but in general, they're the terms that people search for that you want to show up in the search results for. So going back to our example about coffee, if you have that how to brew the best cup of coffee is your keyword you're trying to reach, you want to make sure that you're writing everything somebody might need to know about that topic. How they need to grind their beans to get the best cup of coffee, what the temperature of the water should be, any individual piece of information that they might need, you should be including on your page there. And so we talked about answering the user's intent. The next one is content freshness signals. Search engines are crawling the entire internet all the time. They're always looking for new content out there, and there are ways to submit that content to them as well. But they're keeping an eye on when things are changing, essentially. So the more fresh content that you can have on your site, the more regularly you're updating, you're posting blogs, the better signals you're going to send to those search engines that you're a relevant source of data, you're not outdated, essentially. So we want to make sure that we're always posting new content to our websites. If you have old content that maybe has been dropping in how it's performing in organic search, maybe you want to revisit it and update that content, give it, that freshness aspect, and it's likely that it'll rise up in the search results again. And finally, business location. For a lot of searches, the results that you get are going to be localized. So we talked about the search coffee shop. That's a really obvious one. It's likely that the intent there is that you want to actually visit a coffee shop. So if you're not adding a identifier, because you're going on vacation and want to know the best coffee shop in Seattle or wherever it might be, the search engines are going to assume that you're looking for a coffee shop close to where you currently are. So we need to keep in mind, what's realistic in terms of our business location when we're trying to rank for those more localized search terms. And especially with the local pack or the results in Google Maps, Google is always serving whatever is closest to the user. So if you're, looking at, we're in Traverse City. So if you're looking at the results for Traverse City specifically, somebody's in downtown TC, they're searching for a restaurant to go to. The search results are going to show all of the restaurants that are closest to where that person is right now. Maybe there is an incredible restaurant, great reviews, great business listing that is a little bit further away. It's not likely that that's going to show up at the top of the search. So there's some things that have to do with relevance that you can't necessarily control if you have a set business location already. But you can work to optimize for the searches that really are going to be relevant to you where you are located. All right. So one thing I really love to look at when I'm talking about an intro to SEO is this Moslow's hierarchy of SEO needs. It's from Moz. I'm sure if you need information about SEO, Moz is always a great place to look. They share really good information there. But I really love this because it outlines kind of where you need to start and then where you can go as you're advancing what you're doing in terms of search. So when we look at the very bottom of our hierarchy, we have crawl accessibility. It is the absolute most important thing we can think about when it comes to SEO. And really what that means is, can search engines find your website? If they can't find your website, it does not matter how great of a user experience you have, how great your content is, because they're not going to show it in the search results. So number one, crawl accessibility, and we'll talk about that in just 1 minute. And then also compelling content. So we really want to make sure that we're creating great content after we make sure that it is accessible and technically sound. So we're going to talk through those things, and then we'll cover the rest at the top of the pyramid there. So crawl accessibility. Really all this means, as I said, is just that a search engine is able to find your content. There's a lot that can go into this. The basics is just that they are able to find your website, read all the content that's on your site, and consider it to rank and search. When you get more in depth, you might talk about some more technical SEO pieces, cleaning up your site, making it fast, all of those pieces. But in order to just make sure that it's accessible, we want to think about a good structure on our site and internal linking. So we want to make sure that all of the pages on the site are accessible within a few clicks from the homepage, because our bots that are, or our spiders that are crawling from search engines are going to start on the homepage and they're going to crawl through all of the links on every page. So you have to click 6, 7, 8 times to get to a page on your site, then it's much less likely that the search engine is going to make it there when they're crawling your site. And then your internal linking structure really is just how all of the pages on your site are linking to one another. And that communicates how important various pages on your site are. So if there is only one link or no links in some instances to a page on your site, then that's communicating that it really is not very important, and it doesn't matter that much if it's ranking well in the search results, and it's not nearly as likely to do well. So we want to make sure we're linking to all of the content on our site really effectively. Next, we want to make sure that there's an accurate XML sitemap. So most systems can generate them automatically. For a lot of our sites, we use a plugin called Yoast on WordPress, which does a really good job creating an XML sitemap that you can edit, or you can generate one yourself by crawling the site on Screaming Frog and creating a sitemap from there. We always want to make sure that we submit the XML sitemap to Google and Bing, the two major search engines. You can do that through Google Search Console and Bing Webmaster Tools. And that just makes sure they know where they can find your XML sitemap, and it gives them a reminder to be crawling that sitemap and everything else on your site in turn. And finally, no funny business. There's a lot of things that you can do on your site that will block it from search, whether it's putting something in your robots text that blocks the whole site or part of the site, or putting, a no index tag on your pages. It's always something you want to check for when you're auditing a site to make sure that it is crawlable and you can find anything. Obviously, those tools can be really helpful if you have pages you don't want to show up in the search, but we just want to make sure that we're not using any of those no index tags or blocking crawling on anything that we really do want to show up in the results. So we want to write compelling and optimized content. This is really, I think, the bread and butter of SEO right now, because search engines are so good at understanding that content now. It doesn't matter if you stuff a page full of keywords if you haven't written good content that's actually useful to users. So once you have that technical base to make sure your site's crawlable, really want to focus on writing the best content possible. We want to make sure we're targeting strategic keywords. As I mentioned in another training, we'll talk about how to actually choose keywords for a page. But right now, we just want to think about the fact that we are using them. And that means we're writing about things that people are searching for. If you, are writing content that nobody is really searching for, or maybe that's not quite relevant to your customers, then it's not going to perform for you nearly as well. The next thing is that we're answering the searcher's query. I talked about this a little bit in the beginning as well, but it's really important. Even if you have the keywords there and you maybe have written content that's interesting, but it doesn't actually answer what the user wants, they're gonna conduct the search, come to your page, and then they're going to go right back to the SERP and look for another result to click on. And every time a user bounces like that on your content, it's sending the message to Google or Bing or whatever search engine it is that that user didn't find what they needed on your page. And that means those search engines are going to assume your page shouldn't be ranking for that keyword. So we want to make sure we're giving users what they need in our content. In a related fashion, we always want to offer a better resource than the competing content. So every time I work on a piece of content, I always search for the keywords I'm going to be targeting and look at what's ranking for those keywords right now. Those are the pieces of content that you want to outperform. So we should know what they actually say, and we should focus on writing content that's better than those pieces. So, if they have instructions for one way to do things, maybe you want to go more in depth, offer a better set of instructions, offer a few different ways to approach the issue. Just make sure that whatever you do, you're writing better content than the competition. And finally, we want to make sure the content is well organized and easy to read. And that's important, obviously, for the search engines when they're crawling it and making sense of your content, but it's also really important for users. We know that users don't have a lot of patience these days. We like to go to a page, take a look at it, and if we don't think it's right, we leave, we bounce. So we want to make sure it's really well organized and really easy to read. And what that means is using a lot of headers, using, not just long paragraph blocks of text, but really breaking things out so it's easy to comprehend and easy to find something. Especially if you have a really long page of content, those headers are going to let a user scroll through and find exactly what they're looking for without having to dig through paragraphs and paragraphs of content. One thing that I always like to think about is those lessons that you probably had when you were in school about paragraph structure and how every paragraph needs an intro sentence and a conclusion sentence and 3 sentences in the middle. That does not necessarily apply to web copy. Web copy should really be to the point. It should be broken out in a way that there isn't ever any really massive blocks of text, because it's a lot easier to read. Similarly, when we're thinking about heading structure, we want to make sure we have an H1. That's really the overall overarching topic. Should include the primary keyword we're trying to target, and then really breaking it down more specifically into those H2, H3, H4, and creating kind of that outline for our whole piece of content. Whenever possible, definitely use bullets, definitely use numbered lists. One thing I love to do, kind of going back to that make something better than the competition, is I love to search for a keyword and see, if it has a featured snippet, what that featured snippet is. If there's a numbered list or a bulleted list in the featured snippet, then I always include a better list in my piece of content. And then hopefully not only can you rank for that search term you're targeting, but you might also get the featured snippet. All right. So those are the basics. If you do nothing else, do those 2 things and hopefully you'll be in pretty good shape. But there is a lot more that we can do, obviously, when it comes to optimizing for search. So the rest of the pyramid outlines some of that, and we're going to be talking about all of these things as we go through our Learn with Oneupweb training offerings. That content should be optimized for specific keywords. So you want to do keyword research and have a strategy for what keywords you're trying to rank for before you even start writing content for your site. We'll definitely talk about that keyword strategy and how to implement those keywords throughout the content on your site, how many times it should be there, where it should be, all of those good things. We talked about this a little bit already, but have a great user experience. Some specifics that might include is having a fast load speed. It's a technical piece of the site, but we really want our sites to load quickly so people don't get bored and leave while just waiting for it to load. Make sure it's easy to use and make sure it works on every single device. So a phone with a small screen, a phone with a big screen, a tablet, a laptop, a desktop, every device. We want it to load quickly and be really easy to navigate. We want to create share-worthy content. So I think that really fits into creating compelling content. You always want your content to be shareable. But if it is shareable, what that's going to do is it's going to encourage people to share it on social. It's going to encourage other websites to include links back to your content. And really, it's just going to get those URLs out there in the world. And that's going to increase their likelihood of ranking well in the SERP. And then we get into some more specifics like our title, our URL, our meta description, all of those pieces of content or pieces of the puzzle that we want to make sure are optimized, that have our keywords and are written to be the right length and such. We'll have a training on on-page optimization, and we'll talk all about titles and meta descriptions when we do that. And then finally, some more specific things like snippets, getting the featured snippets, using schema markup. There's a lot of added pieces of code that you can add to your site with schema markup that give more information and really provide some good context for your content to search engines. And that's where you get things like photos showing up in the SERP. You have, a recipe and it tells you how many it serves and how many calories are in it, how long it takes to make. That's all information that you can communicate with schema markup. So we'll talk about schema in another training as well. I think it'll be in the intermediate SEO section of Learn with Oneupweb when the time comes. Well, thank you everybody for coming to our training. We are so excited to be offering this Learn with Oneupweb program. We'll be uploading trainings regularly over the course of the next few months and continuing on into the future. So once you're signed up, you'll get alerts. You'll know when new trainings are up there for you, and just keep on learning with us. There is a quiz on this landing page that you can take to see how well you absorbed all of the information from the training, as well as some additional reading so that you can really dig deeper into this topic. All right, we hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.